The roar was deafening, a wall of fire consuming everything. But amidst that terrifying inferno, a lone park ranger saw something unthinkable, a helpless, unconscious deer trapped, doomed. Every fiber was being screamed to evacuate, to save himself. Every siren wailed for retreat. But what he did next, deep within the heart of that blazing hell, defied all logic, defied every command, and revealed the true depth of an American hero. He was a man of duty, forged in sacrifice, and what he faced here, with the forest burning all around him, was a choice that would define him forever. This isn't just a story. It's a testament to the unyielding spirit of courage when all hope seems lost. Ranger David Miller was a figure carved from the very landscape he protected. His frame, lean and hardened by decades of physical labor, moved with the quiet efficiency of someone who truly belonged in the wild. Before the towering redwoods and shimmering rivers of this national park became his dominion, David had walked a different, more volatile path. He was a Marine Corps combat engineer, his early years etched with the grit of distant desert deployments. The disciplined precision required to clear explosive ordnance, the absolute reliance on a battle buddy, the unwavering focus under fire. These were lessons that had seeped into his bones. When he returned home, the cacophony of war gave way to the serene whispers of ancient pines. He found solace and a renewed purpose in the vast, untamed beauty of the American wilderness. For 20 years, this park had been more than just a job. It was a profound sense of responsibility, a quiet redemption. He knew every hidden spring, every shadowed glen where the deer grazed peacefully, every subtle shift in the wind that hinted at changing weather. He was a guardian, a silent sentinel against carelessness and neglect. His days were a disciplined rhythm. Pre-dawn patrols, meticulous checks of remote trails, hours spent observing the delicate balance of predator and prey. He lived a solitary life, often spending weeks in the backcountry, sustained by the crisp mountain air and a deep-seated conviction that every creature, every patch of untouched land, deserved protection. This quiet dedication, a blend of military precision and an innate compassion, was rooted in a past burden, the unshakable weight of lives he couldn't save during his tours of duty. He channeled that lingering pain, that profound sense of accountability, into an unwavering commitment to the innocent and the vulnerable. Now, that deep-seated conviction, his very character, was about to face its ultimate test. The normal quiet of the late afternoon shattered with sudden, violent crack. A column of thick, black smoke, angry and monstrous, erupted on the western ridge, climbing into the clear azure sky like a malevolent spirit. David, on a routine patrol near Eagle's Peak, felt the ground tremble beneath his boots, a low rumble that vibrated through the earth before the roar reached his ears. This wasn't controlled burn. This was an inferno. He immediately grabbed his radio, his voice a steady, calm baritone despite the cold, not a dread tightening in his stomach. Unit 7 to command, major fire outbreak, Ridge 2, spreading fast. Initiating immediate evacuation protocol. The air grew heavy, thick and hot, acrid with the smell of burning timber and resin. Through the static, a frantic voice crackled back. Miller, get out. It's moving too fast. Repeat, evacuate immediately. Prioritize your safety. He spun his ATV, dust churning under its tires, speeding toward the main access road, the roar of the fire growing louder, more menacing, with every passing second. But as he rounded a sharp bend, a flicker of movement in the underbrush caught his eye. A tiny, desperate bleat, barely audible above the rising wind. A young fawn, no more than a few months old, stumbled blindly through the thickening smoke, disoriented and terrified, its spindly legs collapsing beneath it. And then, just beyond the fawn, he saw her. A large doe, her rich brown coat matted with ash, lay motionless, tragically still, directly in the path of the advancing flames. She was overcome by smoke inhalation, her chest rising and falling with barely perceptible, ragged breaths. The choice was agonizingly clear, stark, and brutal. He could flee, save himself, and live to fight another day. Or He could face the approaching inferno for a life that was not his own. His foot slammed on the brake, the ATV skidding to a halt in a shower of gravel and ash. The heat was already searing, radiating from the unseen wall of fire, the air thick with falling embers. He lunged from the vehicle, his ranger hat tumbling unnoticed to the ground. "Hey, little one," he called, his voice rough with urgency, trying to calm the panicking fawn, which now pressed itself against his unconscious mother. He knelt beside the doe, his practiced hands, steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him, checking for a pulse, a breath. Faint, but there, a fragile flicker of life. She was alive, but barely. The fawn, whimpering, nudged his mother's head, its tiny nose nudging her flank, then looked up at David with wide, fearful eyes, an innocent, desperate plea in their depths. A wave of adrenaline, cold and electric, surged through him, pushing back the primal fear that clawed at his throat. He knew the risks. The fire was accelerating with terrifying speed, a living, hungry entity, and staying was a death sentence. But he couldn't leave them. Not these innocent creatures. Not while a flicker of life remained. Not while they were utterly helpless. He began to drag the heavy doe, inch by agonizing inch, towards a relative shelter of a shallow gully he knew, his muscles screaming in protest, his boots sinking into the hot ash. Every fiber of his being, every lesson learned in the Corps about never leaving a comrade behind, every oath he'd taken to protect and serve, screamed at him to act. The fawn, with surprising speed, instinctively followed, staying incredibly close to his mother, a tiny shadow of hope. The fire roared like a vengeful beast, gaining ground with terrifying speed. Embers, large as dinner plates, rained down, igniting fresh blazes around them with chilling pops and hisses. The gully offered little respite, the smoke thickening, making each breath a painful, tearing gasp. David pulled and strained, his uniform already singed, sweat and ash streaking his grim face. The doe was a dead weight, her breathing shallow and ragged, a fragile flutter of life against the immense power of the inferno. He knew he couldn't carry her far like this, not through the burning maze. He tried to rouse her again, his voice hoarse, slapping her flank gently. "Come on, girl. Wake up. You have to move," he urged, desperation creeping into his tone. Nothing. Her eyelids remained closed, her body limp. The roar of the fire intensified, the wind picking up, whipping the flames into a furious dance, a swirling vortex of orange and red. He could hear towering trees cracking and falling with thunderous crashes, the sounds echoing through the inferno like giants' footsteps. He glanced back, seeing the wall of fire licking at the gully's edge, a terrifying orange more ready to consume them. The fawn, now pressed against his legs, whimpered, its tiny body trembling uncontrollably, its breath hitching with fear. Despair, cold and sharp as a shard of ice, threatened to pierce his resolve. His lungs burned a raw, agonizing pain, his vision blurred from the relentless smoke. He was utterly exhausted, every muscle screaming for release, for him to stop, to give up. But then he looked down at the trembling fawn, then at the unconscious doe, their fragile lives in his hands, and a deep, primal protective instinct, honed by a lifetime of service and profound sense of duty, took over. He would not abandon them, not while he still had a breath left in his body. He dug deep, reaching for the core strength that had carried him through combat zones, through relentless training, through moments of absolute exhaustion. Never quit, never leave a man behind. The words, silent yet powerful, echoed in his mind. He scanned the swirling chaos, his eyes burning, searching for anything, any hint of an escape route. He saw a glimmer of hope, a narrow, overgrown deer trail, barely visible through the choking smoke, leading away from the gully and toward what he hoped was a less ravaged section of the forest. It was a gamble, a desperate path to the inferno, but it was their only chance. He had to try. He took a deep, shuddering breath, the acrid air tearing at his throat. With a guttural grunt of effort, he hoisted the unconscious doe over his shoulders, her surprisingly heavy weight threatening to buckle his knees, the fragile warmth of her body against his skin a desperate anchor. The fawn, sensing the shift, nuzzled its mother's flank, then, with an almost unbelievable bravery, trotted alongside David, a tiny, determined shadow in the face of oblivion. He plunged into the smoky labyrinth, stumbling over roots and rocks, his boots sinking into hot ash that radiated scorching heat. The heat was suffocating, a monstrous hand pressing down on him, the air thick with a sickening scent of burning resin and flesh. A massive oak, consumed by flame, groaned and crashed to the ground just yards ahead, sending a shower of sparks and a wave of heat that scorched his exposed skin, raising instant blisters. He instinctively shielded the doe with his own body, gritting his teeth against the searing pain, refusing to falter. He could feel the rapid, thready beating of the doe's heart against his back, a fragile rhythm that fueled his desperate efforts, urging him onward. He pushed through thickets of burning brush, his uniform tearing, his skin blistering, every step in agony. He was navigating by instinct now, a primal need to survive, to protect, to fulfill an unspoken vow. He remembered the grueling forced marches of his Marine days, the relentless training that taught him to push past perceived limits, to find reserves of strength he didn't know he possessed. The fire roared behind him, a hungry predator gaining ground. His legs threatened to give out, his vision swam, and his mind screamed for him to stop, to curl into a ball and let the inevitable consume him. But then through the haze he saw it, a shimmering, smoky outline of a rocky outcrop, a potential refuge, a small, desperate clearing just beyond the immediate reach of flames. With a final, raw, guttural roar of effort, he lunged forward, bursting through a final curtain of thick smoke and collapsing, utterly spent, onto the relatively cool stone. He lay there for a long moment, gasping, every muscle screaming in protest, the doe sliding gently from his shoulders to rest beside him. The fawn, tiny and trembling, immediately nudged his mother, whimpering softly, a sound that sliced through the roaring in David's ears. Slowly, agonizingly, David pushed himself up, his body aching, his face caked with soot and streaked with tears. He watched, holding his breath, as the doe's eyelids fluttered, then slowly, miraculously, opened, her large, dark eyes, glazed with confusion and fear, focused on him. She tried to stand, her legs unsteady, but David gently pressed her down. "Easy, girl," he murmured, his voice raw, barely a whisper. The fawn, seeing its mother conscious, began to lick her face frantically, its tiny tail wagging with a raw, innocent joy. David reached out a trembling, soot-stained hand and gently stroked the doe's head, feeling the warmth of her soft fur. She didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned into his touch, her eyes, wide with fear moments before, now filled with quiet, profound gratitude. A silent, powerful acknowledgement passed between them. Just then, the distinct, rhythmic whir of rotors grew louder, closer, cutting to the diminishing roar of the distant fire. A search and rescue helicopter, a familiar silhouette against the smoky sky, materialized in the hazy air, descending slowly into the small clearing. Other rangers, their faces etched with worry and exhaustion, spilled out, their expressions shifting from disbelief to immense relief as they saw David and the two deer. One of them, Ranger Evans, rushed forward, his face pale with concern. "Miller, we thought you were gone. What in God's name? How did you—" David simply offered a weary, smoke-grimed smile, gesturing toward the recovering doe and her fawn, a silent, humble explanation. The raw emotion of the moment, the overwhelming relief washing over the scene, the doe slowly pushing herself to a wobbly stand, the fawn nuzzling its mother and then, incredibly, nudging David's hand, created a powerful, deeply touching tableau. The silent gratitude from the now conscious doe, a gentle nuzzle against his rough, burned hand, was a moment of profound connection, a silent thank you that resonated deeper than any words. It was a pure, unadulterated essence of the triumph of compassion over chaos. In the days that followed, the great wildfire slowly yielded to the tireless efforts of firefighters from across the nation. The forest, though scarred and charred, would eventually begin its long, slow process of healing, just as a wound eventually closes. David, after a thorough medical checkup that revealed nothing more serious than severe smoke inhalation and minor burns, returned to his duties with the quiet resolve that defined him. The story of the unconscious doe and the brave ranger who refused to leave her behind spread quickly, whispered among the fire crews, then shared with hushed reverence throughout the local communities. It became more than just an anecdote. It became a testament to a different kind of American hero, not one wielding a weapon in battle, but one holding firm to the sacred trust of protecting the vulnerable, even when the world around him was engulfed in flames. Weeks later, while patrolling a newly opened section of the park, the air still carrying a faint, lingering scent of smoke, David spotted them. Majestic and graceful, a doe, her coat gleaming in the sunlight, grazed peacefully in a sun-dappled clearing, a thriving, playful fawn at her side. He recognized her instantly, the faint, healed scars on her flank telling their own story. He watched them for a long moment, a quiet warmth spreading through his chest. It was a subtle, beautiful reminder that heroism isn't always about grand gestures or public accolades, but often about the quiet, unwavering commitment to a cause larger than oneself. It's about drawing on inner strength when all seems lost, about the profound act of compassion, deeply rooted in the American spirit, that allows life to not just survive, but to truly flourish. It was the enduring power of one man's selfless courage, a testament to the resilience of both nature and the human heart.